let us move along and say hello to our next guest. It's been a while since we've had Liz Carmouche on the program. I'm happy to say hello to her now. She fights for the UFC women's flyweight title on August 10th against Valentina Shevchenko. This is a fascinating matchup. We say hello now to Liz Carmouche. Liz, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for joining us. What was your reaction when you found out that they were moving you from the July 20th fight against Roxanne Modafferi to a title shot against Valentina Shevchenko?
I was super excited. I think you know from previously talking to me in the past that what I'm always aiming for is that championship. It doesn't matter who the face is, who holds the belt. That's what ultimately what I'm always working towards. So to have an opportunity to go right into that is perfect. And fortunately, we were already training for as if it was a championship fight, just because why not overtrain and be prepared and be able to essentially sprint through a 15-minute round. And so it was just extra time to get ready for this fight.
Were you caught off guard by this? It's rare to have someone like move off of another fight and get a title shot, or did you think after Valentina's last win that this was something that could happen?
No, I never thought that I would get a phone call and say, hey, in lieu of doing this fight against Roxanne, it's going to be for the belt. I never thought that was going to happen. But like I said, I prepare as if the championship fight is always going to happen. So in one sense, very much surprised. In another sense, prepared for the possibility.
And again, a lot of newer fans might not know this, but you actually gave Valentina Shevchenko her first pro loss back in 2010. What, if anything, do you remember from that fight?
I think the biggest thing is that it was such a shady organization. Because really, I think most people don't know, like you said, is that fight, I was actually supposed to fight her sister because we had a very similar record, both brand new to MMA, very inexperienced. And then you had Valentina, who'd been doing it, I think, 10 years, at least just in combat sports in general with Muay Thai and boxing, previous to that. And then we got there, we looked at the poster, and we're like, that doesn't look right. Wait a second. First of all, she's standing as a southpaw, and the hair is blonde, not brunette. I'm really confused. And they're like, oh, yeah. I'm like, no, my contract says it's the other sister, but I'll still take the fight.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like one of those things where the last minute they showed up, tried to trick me. We took the fight anyway, and were able to pull off a win with last 10 seconds, last 15 seconds of the fight, cutting her.
Wait a second. So do you think that they were in on this? Do you think they tried to actually try to trick you?
I heard a lot of bad things from other fighters that fought for that organization, the shady things pulled. So I don't know I know as far as like Valentina's camp, they were just as surprised as we were. They didn't know the confusion. So as far as the camps, it wasn't like they were trying to do something shifty and trying to do something that was questionable. It was the fight organization itself, which to my knowledge doesn't exist today. Fortunately, so this doesn't happen to other fighters.
And the name of the promotion, by the way, for those wondering, is C3 Fights, and that's in Oklahoma. Did you know anything about Valentina when you took that fight against her on short notice?
No, we've done a little bit of research just because both sisters were fighting.
Uh-huh.
And I think originally they had mentioned her name, and my coach looked it up and he's like, no, she's brand new. She's only been training for a few months. She's down to fight, but she's just not conditioned enough. She's too green to the sport to possibly going into this fight. The sister, perfect, makes sense, absolutely. So we did look her up a little bit, but not too crazy, because she was a Muay Thai fighter and a boxer at that point, not really into MMA, whereas her sister and I think were both 2-0 at that point. So it just made for a good suggestion for us to fight together, and ended up being Valentina instead.
I tried to find footage of it. I was having a hard time. Could you tell us how the fight played out? In the end, you won via doctor stoppage, I believe, going into the third round. But could you tell us how it actually played out?
Yeah, because it was very vague, still new in my career. Like I said, I think it was the second or third pro fight for me. And so I don't remember much about that night. I remember not being well lit, not being warmed up, us being very cold. And I just remember with an upkick that I was able to cut her over the eye, and it just wouldn't stop bleeding. And unfortunately, it kept bleeding into her eye, and that's really significant. I remember just being covered head to toe in her blood, and them trying to stop the fight, her not being able to answer the bell because of the cut over her eye.
Wow. And did you keep tabs on her? Are you surprised that same person has turned into the fighter that she is today? Did you keep tabs on her throughout?
Yes and no. So at that time, I was really surprised because, as far as my understanding, her specialty was in Muay Thai and boxing, and she's just kind of doing MMA just as a thing to try out, not really her interest. So the fact that she went as far as she did, yeah, absolutely surprised. Skill set wise, not at all. I saw then, obviously what we all see now is that she's a very skilled fighter. So to see where she's at, I'm not surprised. But also very surprised because I thought that she was going to go back to Muay Thai and boxing and pursue that career. So for her to continue with MMA is a real surprise to me.
Did you watch her last fight against Jessica Ai?
Absolutely. Oh yeah. Once she got that belt, I've been studying her and watching her ever since.
Okay, what did you think of that performance?
It was exactly what I expected and anticipated. I thought she was going to finish her in the first round, not the second round, and called exactly what was going to happen. She's going to set it up with those inside leg kicks, body kicks. I always thought drop her hands and then she'll get knocked out, and it just happened to happen in the second round instead of the first.
There appears to be a gap between Shevchenko and a lot of the fighters in that 125-pound weight class. We spoke to Paige Van Zandt last week, and she called her terrifying, which is kind of unique to hear from a fellow fighter in that particular weight class. Do you buy into the hype? Like, do you feel like she is getting the respect that she deserves? Like, I think she's the most dominant champion right now in the UFC. Do you feel like all that is warranted?
I think anybody that holds the belt, of course, that's warranted. I'm going to do nothing but respect the person that holds the belt because they work to get that. And so I think to not pay them respect would be silly and kind of be a setup for myself. So I certainly respect that the efforts that she's put in, the skill set she has, represents exactly what the championship should be.
Do you consider her to be terrifying as well?
No.
I have a feeling you've never considered any of your opponents to be terrifying.
Not really. No, not yet.
Yeah, that something tells me. And so when you got this opportunity, I'm assuming you said yes right away. You didn't have to think twice, correct?
Yeah, I didn't hesitate. Not at all. I mean, I've been telling my not only my coaches, but telling my management that, hey, there's no doubt if I ever get the call, if somebody backs out of a fight, it's last minute, 10 days notice, I will absolutely take that fight without hesitation. So just let them know, let the UFC know, I'm ready for this. Whenever it is, like I said, I've been training as if it's a championship fight every single fight, regardless of who it is. So I've just been hoping that somebody else drops out of the fight, not wishing that anybody get injured because I don't wish that upon anybody. But if the opportunity arises that I could replace somebody, that they would give me that call immediately.
Will you watch that first fight 9 years ago in preparation for this one?
If I had footage, I wish. Like, this is back when, one, I was too poor to barely have a cell phone, let alone have, like, one of the fancy ones. I think I had a flip phone at the time. So there's no footage whatsoever. I've tried finding footage. My fight team has, all my coaches, my management, everybody. None of us been able to find footage because it really was out in the middle of nowhere. I think we maybe didn't even have reception because of how far away it was from everything.
Wow.
And then it just kind of, it was 2010, so not many people had all the fancy smartphones that you can just pull up and record everything.
Right. Okay. So, and like, do you remember it enough? Like, will you draw any sort of knowledge from that fight, or do you think that it was too long ago? It doesn't really matter at this point.
Of course it matters, but I don't think it matters in the sense that I'm not the fighter that I was then. I was still so green that I don't think even at that point I'd ever sparred anybody that was a southpaw, let alone fought somebody that was a southpaw. So really, as much as I can take from it, I was still so inexperienced at that time that it'd be foolish of me to look back at that and see how it can play. And she's also grown as a fighter, so I have to see stylistically how both of us have evolved and prepare for those fighters today.
And I also love the story of you getting another crack at the belt after, of course, you fought Ronda Rousey in the first ever female fight and first ever female title fight. And again, sort of along the lines of you not feeling like your opponent is terrified or terrifying, I wonder if you were maybe nervous for that because that was such a big deal. And if this time around, because you've been there, done that, you will be less nervous. Is there anything to that?
No, I think that in both those scenarios that there, or at least in the first one, there were certainly some nerves that went into it. But very quickly when I got there, I felt like that was where I was supposed to be. So those nerves fell away very quickly. And then with each fight, I have less and less nerves. I'm more and more prepared for the fight. You know, the more that you're better into it, you get experience to all the limelight, everything that comes in. And not to say that you get weathered to it, but you certainly get the experience ready to go into it and not be overwhelmed by the experience of being in there.
And of course, you seem to be very close to submitting her in that fight several years ago in Anaheim. How often do you think about that moment, how different your life, how different women's MMA would have been had you won that?
Every now and then it happens, especially somebody will ask me, and it really causes me to sit back and reflect on that fight and just realize how different all of women's MMA possibly could have been had I been the victor and not Ronda. But I really do think things happen for a reason, and maybe it didn't happen then, but I've been preparing for this moment that's about to happen August 10th.
Yeah, like it's amazing. Had you beaten her that night, there's a very good chance we never would have seen Ronda ever again, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
And the whole thing would have been different. It's unbelievable, like the sliding
Absolutely.
doors there and that particular phenomenon. Are you surprised that she has not come back?
No, I'm not. I'm really not, because I knew her going into it. She had an image of what she pictured her fight career to go like, and none of which included a loss of any sort. So to have two losses the way she did, I think that debunked the theories that she had for herself and how she pictured her fight career going. And when it didn't go in that way, she didn't prepare any other way. So I don't think that she was invested in having a loss on her record. So I wasn't surprised at all that she didn't continue on.
I've noticed you and your teammate Alima Lee McFarland and some other members of your team, you've been doing this like underwater training in San Diego. What exactly,
Yeah.
it looks like the toughest thing in the world, like the endurance that you must have, the cardio. What exactly is that? What exactly are you guys doing?
It's a blast. Essentially what we're doing is we're trying to do any endurance, any strength activities under a CO2 max, so CO2 tolerance. So you don't have the benefit of having oxygen, obviously, because you're deep underwater. You also have the benefits of having that deep water compression to help promote healing, and it takes all the impact. So if you're doing any weight training underwater, that takes impact away from your body, so you're not going to endure that smashing hardness that you usually have in weight training and in running. But it's also an element where you build a sense of confidence knowing that I can grapple underwater and I can defend the submission. I can put on the submission with no oxygen, doing this underwater from anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. So
Wow.
it's kind of an accumulation of everything all together.
So what's the longest you've gone underwater without coming up to take a breath?
The longest is 2 minutes.
Wow, 2 minutes. Holy smokes. Who has the record right now, and how long is that among your teammates?
It wouldn't be around the teammates. It was one of the instructors, Rick. I think his record is over 3 minutes of a breath hold.
Oh my
and this
gosh.
guy, like any activities we do, he's insane. He's a fish. He goes underwater. He does the activities. We play gameplay. We all grapple, score the goal, and he's just sitting there waiting like, let's just go ahead and just start the next one. Like, you can come up for air. It's okay. Like, are you insane?
Wow.
And he just looks so relaxed. It's insane. He's able to get into this whole new state, in tune with his body, in a state of mental focus that allows him to know that I can go through all this and still calm my body and not need that desperation for air.
And you're actually grappling under there, or are you just kind of going through the motions?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, we're definitely grappling under there.
My God, that's unbelievable. And going for like chokeholds and everything.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
But there's a few of us, like the MMA fighters, going into it, and we all communicate with each other and some of the instructors that are very comfortable enough underwater that we will do chokeholds. Other than that, it's usually just holding on to each other and joint manipulation moves, but without chokeholds. There's only a few of us that actually do choke moves to each other.
And have you already felt a difference? Like, is this helping you in training in your fights?
Big time. Yeah, not only have I noticed a difference, like I said, just in the grappling aspect, knowing that, oh, okay, well, I'm in this submission, and, oh, no, what am I going to do? Like, I'm stuck. This is deep. I'm like, oh, wait, I can do this. I can breathe. I can stay in this until that person gets gassed out. And then having the ability where you think that maybe your arms are fatigued and you're gassed out and you can't put on that rear naked choke, or you can't submit somebody, you know that you can because you've done it underwater. And then just the endurance, my body feels healthier because, like I said, that deep compression helps promote healing in your body. But also any of the stuff that I do underwater isn't wearing and tearing my body. So all of that is just made such a difference in each fight camp.
And finally, back to Valentina. In your mind, in your coach's mind, what is something that you must not do against her? What are things that you have seen other people do in her fights recently, since she's dropped down to 125 and looked so good, that you cannot replicate in this fight?
I think the biggest thing that everybody has done is they think of like a snake charmer or a snake charmer. Is they do their little song and dance and people are enticed into their tempo. It's the same thing. Everybody's falling into her tempo and letting her set the pace. When anybody throws her off of her tempo and doesn't let her dictate how the whole fight goes, they do well. Like look at Nunez against her. It's everybody that falls in and lets her set the whole tempo of the fight that falls into a loss with her.
I'm looking forward to it. I think this is a fascinating fight, and I know a lot of people are counting you out, but I'm not counting you out, Liz. I feel like you're going to give her a tough fight, and I'm not ready to count you out. You have been there, you have done that, you have seen it all, and you have a win against her to boot. So I'm sure that gives you confidence going into this, even though it was kind of a crazy scenario as well. I wish you the best. Thank you very much for doing this, Liz, and good luck on August 14th.
Thank you so much.
All right, there she is, Liz Carmouche. Yes, August 14th in Uruguay, Montevideo to be exact, the Antel Arena. Kind of crazy. I didn't know that. She was supposed to fight Antonina Shevchenko, and then they did the old switcheroo on her. Unbelievable. That's not very nice. And then she still won. Hello, everyone. It's Ariel Helwani. I just came here to thank you for watching our ESPN YouTube channel. It's the best. You know what else is the best? The ESPN app. You can get highlights, analysis, all that stuff and more. And if you want premium content and live streaming sports, there's only one place for all of that. It's ESPN Plus.